I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israel prepares to finally reopen its embassy in Egypt. Police arrest an Islamic cleric preaching terrorism in Israel. And if you're on a mission to make a baby, a new app is about to make things a whole lot easier. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. We're getting breaking reports that Israel is planning to reopen its embassy in Cairo. The foreign ministry has yet to confirm, but it looks like Israeli security has been in and out of Egypt for months now, assessing the situation to see if things are calm enough for the embassy to reopen. Israel's Egyptian embassy has been dogged by security problems for years, closing and reopening twice already in less than a decade. In 2011, thousands of Egyptians stormed the embassy in Cairo, forcing an emergency airlift of Israeli diplomats. And just last year, security concerns forced the embassy to close again. Israel and Egypt signed a peace deal over 25 years ago, but there are still major tensions between the people. Now it looks like things may finally be cooling off, at least for the moment. Israel sent a team to Cairo last month to assess the security situation, and now an Israeli delegation has just met with Egyptian officials in Cairo to discuss reopening the embassy. Negotiations are now underway for both sides to establish proper security. This would be a big step forward in restoring tensions between Israel and one of its neighbors. It's coming at a time when Israel's embassy in Jordan remains closed. Well, days after the horrific violence, deaths, and anti-Semitism in the streets of Charlottesville, Virginia, the world is still trying to put the pieces together. And now President Trump is setting the record straight on his controversial remarks about the riots by trying to distance himself from white supremacists and extremists.
Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans. We are a nation founded on the truth that all of us are created equal. We are equal in the eyes of our Creator. We are equal under the law, and we are equal under our Constitution.
These are the words spoken Monday that many were hoping to hear the president say last Saturday in the wake of the biggest public gathering of white supremacists, Nazi flags, and anti-Semitic chants in the United States for decades. The day took a tragic turn when a 20-year-old Nazi sympathizer allegedly rammed his car into a group of counter-protesters, injuring dozens and killing 32-year-old Heather Heyer. 2 Virginia troopers were also killed in a helicopter crash while trying to calm the riots. President Trump's first public statement was met with fierce criticism from all ends of the spectrum when he denounced the violence on, quote, many sides. Israeli Education Minister Naftali Bennett was the first in Israel to come out and slam President Trump's words, asking him to specifically call out the Nazi flags and anti-Semitism. But Bennett was just one voice in a sea of critics who found the president's choice of words disturbingly vague. It may have come a few days late, but now the U.S. president has finally cleared things up. He's against Nazis. Well, there's been another arrest in the Arab-Israeli village of al-Fahim. This time it's an Islamic cleric who is also the head of a branch of the Islamic movement that was banned by Israel. Police have just taken Sheikh Salah into custody on charges of rallying violence on the Temple Mount and publicly inciting terrorism against Israel to his followers. This isn't Salah's first arrest. He was released earlier this year after serving a 9-month sentence for inciting violence and racism. In that case, he had been convicted of delivering a sermon to his followers and praising Arab martyrs on the Temple Mount. It seems like the sheikh hasn't stopped with his speeches, though. Now under suspicion by police as a central instigator of stirring terrorism, the sheikh is also the head of the northern branch of the Islamic movement, which rejects the Oslo peace accords between Israel and the Palestinians, boycotts elections, and was outlawed in 2015. The group has long been linked to violence and acts of terror in Israel. Salah preaches in al-Fahim, which is also the home of the 3 terrorists who shot and killed 2 Israeli cops at the Temple Mount last month, an incident which sparked some of the bloodiest weeks of violence between Israel and the Palestinians in years. The 3 young terrorists were killed in the incident and hailed as martyrs for Al-Aqsa at their funeral. A devastating landslide has killed hundreds of people in Sierra Leone, and the Israeli Prime Minister has now instructed the Foreign Ministry to send aid to the West African nation. At least 312 people have been killed and more than 2,000 have been left homeless, all after heavy flooding hit Sierra Leone's capital of Freetown. Excavators are pulling out bodies from the rubble as quickly as possible, but the devastation is bigger than local rescue teams can handle.
We will not feel say the thing too serious to this nature. So we come, we scatter within the area, we able to rescue some people, then the lead body, the way they attack out in the land, we able to take them. You understand? But when I care about the first batch of the lead body, then when at the team, I get for go cry to the doctor, say, before up with vehicles. So he give me some ambulances with some other health workers there.
Well, Israel is trying to help out by sending medicine, clean water, blankets, and other necessities to Sierra Leone via the embassy in Senegal. Israel doesn't actually have an embassy in Freetown, but Sierra Leone's President Ernest Bai Koroma visited Israel in January. Interestingly, at the time, Netanyahu discussed sending a delegation to help with the country's development since Sierra Leone remains one of the poorest countries in the world. Freetown is hit each year with flooding during several months of rain that often destroy homes and raises the risk of waterborne diseases. Well, the president of Iran is threatening to pull out of the 2015 nuclear deal, claiming he'll pull the plug if the U.S. proceeds with further sanctions against Iran. With us to explain the situation is ILTV's Brett Allen Smith. Now, Brett, what is going on with the deal now?
Well, the deal with Iran, the nuclear deal, it's a very touchy subject, and it was back then and it continues to be now, obviously. Right. What the deal says is that basically the world's leaders are allowed to keep firm control and monitoring over developing nuclear power in Iran in exchange for lifting certain sanctions off of Iran. Now, this is problematic because President Trump has actually just earlier this month signed new laws which place new sanctions on Russia, North Korea, and Iran. And Iran is taking this to mean that it's a very public display.
Right, it's a major breach of the deal. But, you know, we hear about this Iran nuclear deal here in Israel all the time. Obviously, Israel has been against it from the beginning, and so was Trump, like you said, in his campaign. And that's because they don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons, right?
Right. Obviously, Israel's been very vocally against the deal from the beginning. They don't want any kind of nuclear power in the hands of Iran, who have been pretty open about their mission to wipe Israel off the map. Now, Iran has made threats like this before in the past. It's nothing that new, but it's kind of more complicated than it seems to actually pull out of the deal. And that's something that President Trump himself knows because he, as you said, campaigned on the promise to take U.S. out of the deal, but just in May, he put the U.S. back into the deal, so clearly even he knows it's a very delicate balance.
Wow. All right, well, let's check out your report and see what's happening.
Yep.
The nuclear deal with Iran was one of the biggest stories of 2015 and remains a heated source of debate even today. The Israeli government has been especially vocal against the deal from the very start, as an Iran armed with nuclear warheads means a very real threat to the existence of a Jewish state. The historic deal was reached with nations from across the world and placed restrictions on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for softened international sanctions against Iran. President Trump campaigned on a promise to remove the U.S. from the deal, which he called, quote, the worst deal ever, but personally extended America's participation in it just a few months ago. But now, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has made a televised address to the Iranian parliament, calling out President Trump and warning that he only needs a few hours to pull Iran out of a deal.
جهانیان در ماه‌های اخیر به وضوح دیدند که این ایالات متحده آمریکا و به ویژه در دوران ریاست جمهوری آقای ترامپ است که توافقات بین المللی را نادیده میگیرد و علاوه بر بدعهدی مستمر و مکرر در برجام از توافق پاریس تا توافق با کوبا، از نفتا تا توافق مشارکت با ماوراء اقیانوس آرام را زیر پا گذاشته است و به دنیا و حتی متحدین خود نشان داده است که ایالات متحده نه شریک خوبی است.
This comes after the U.S. Congress passed a bill with massive bipartisan support, issuing new sanctions against Iran, Russia, and North Korea. President Trump signed the bill into law earlier this month, and now it looks like Iran is seeing this as a violation of the original terms of the nuclear deal. The Iranian parliament voted unanimously over the weekend to continue ramping up its missile program at full speed, which means Iran and the U.S. could be butting heads over this very shortly. Unfortunately, it may be Israel that's trapped in the middle.
We've been following the explosive situation surrounding the Palestinian Authority's attack on free speech in the West Bank. The PA has been arresting journalists and citizens voicing dissent against President Abbas's government. But after intense protests, it looks like the first 5 journalists are being released from prison. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's controversial law gave him sweeping power to jail anyone, journalist or citizen, who criticized his government in the press or even on social media. Rights groups have been up in arms over this dangerous censorship law, especially when 5 Palestinian journalists reporting for Abbas's biggest political rivals were jailed just days ago. They were accused of leaking sensitive information to enemy groups, but new evidence suggests that the arrests were more likely a kind of revenge by Abbas against Hamas, for whom the journalists were working for. And adding some truth to that is the fact that the 5 journalists were only released after Hamas agreed to release a journalist from the Palestinian Authority first. But it isn't just journalists that have been subject to censorship. Palestinian citizen Imad al-Masri posted on social media questioning Abbas's sanctions on humanitarian aid on Gaza, which landed him a 2-year jail sentence. Activists and Palestinians flooded the streets in fierce protest of the laws, which some are calling some of the worst attacks on free speech in the Palestinian Authority in decades. But even before these new laws went into effect, the Freedom House ranked media in the West Bank and Gaza below Iraq and Zimbabwe, on par with Russia, with the classification of not free. In 1982, Israeli soldier Tuval Tuli Gvirtzman was killed in action during the First Lebanon War. He died heroically attempting to put out a fire in an armored vehicle that his friend was trapped in when he was hit by an RPG. Even before his death, though, 23-year-old Gvirtzman's life, and more specifically his childhood, inspired the nation, giving birth to the famous Israeli song Tulik.
טוליק יושב לו בשקט בחול, יושב ומביט על הים הכחול, העיניים של טוליק שני...
Now, just following the 25th anniversary of his death, we're joined by singer and actor Oshik Levy, the man who first gave the song Tulik a voice. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome.
So let's talk about this song. How did this song come about?
It was a festival song, Children, in 1976, I think. Many kind of song, and this is the song that I sang in this festival. And I didn't know about it, nothing. The woman who wrote the lyric, she gave it to me, the lyric, and she said it's about a child of a neighborhood from Hedera, and I didn't know. After the song came, everybody think it's about a dog. That's the reason that in
we
the
see
clip.
a dog in that video, right?
Yes, but about 10 years ago, his sister knocked on my door in Ramat Sharon, where I was live, and she gave me a book, and then I heard the story about how he died and what is his story.
So who wrote the song?
A neighbor, a friend of his mother and father, and she wrote about Tulik. He's a child, 4 or 5 years old in that time.
Wow.
And she wrote the song about him because he's very nice and cute
and charismatic child, right?
Yes.
And so what's interesting is how did you end up singing this? How were you chosen to sing it?
Because it's a nice song. The lyric is a very naive, and the music complete the lyrics, and it's a nice song.
And
naive.
So they wanted you because you're a nice guy to sing
Thank
it,
you.
right? All right. So Tulik, obviously we're talking about this song. What kind of meaning did it have for the country of Israel as a whole?
In the beginning, when the song come out, it's a nice song in a festival.
Right.
But after not many people know about the story that he died. I didn't know. It's take about 10 years. I told you, his sister brought me a book about him, and after I heard story about it, so me myself changed something inside of me because it's him.
Right.
And who knows the story? When I tell the story before I perform. When I sing the song, I tell the story. So if they know what I'm talking about, it's sad, but still, it's a naive song. It's very nice.
Well, right, that's the thing, because it's such a sweet song that you wouldn't assume that it has kind of such a dark background.
Not many people know the story.
Right, and like you said, they thought that Tulik was this dog that was in the video, and clearly it wasn't. Well, you know, today this song still has a very strong message, right? What would you say the message is?
It's a naive song. It's between a boy playing the sound, and he met a girl. He didn't give her the grave, and it's a naive song. Nobody takes any message.
But I think the idea is that we all start that way, right? It's we don't want our children to be going into the military and going through this.
No.
So I think it's
definitely
absolutely. But I think it's a reminder, you know, that at the end of the day, we all start out like children.
We know the story.
Exactly.
It's connection, but no, it's a song.
Well, it's a beautiful song, and you sung it beautifully. And thank you so much for joining us to talk about Tulik's life and also this beautiful song.
Thank you.
All right, one of Israel's richest people is in big trouble with the authorities. Diamond tycoon and billionaire Benny Steinmetz has just been named the prime suspect in a slew of charges, including money laundering, fraud, bribery, and a laundry list of corporate corruption. The diamond mogul has been detained by Israel's National Fraud Unit with 4 other suspects, including some of Israel's biggest business tycoons and bankers. Police have just raided Steinmetz's home and office, gathering evidence for a massive case involving millions of dollars in corporate breach, falsifying documents, and obstructing justice. This isn't the first time Steinmetz has landed in hot water with the police. He was arrested at the end of last year, accused of making millions of dollars of bribes in Africa, charges which police believe may factor into this new cloud of corruption. Police are saying Steinmetz and the other suspects acted systematically, creating fake contracts and transactions in order to launder millions of dollars from one country to another. This is a massive investigation covering several continents, with charges of international crime on the table. With a net worth of over $1 billion, it looks like Benny Steinmetz may need every last dime to get out of this one, if that's even possible anymore. All right, going on vacation is exciting because you get the chance to plan out your dream trip. But even if you end up planning every hour of every day, changes can happen at the last moment. Well, one Israeli company is coming to our aid with Neba, an app that is revolutionizing the way that we travel. And Neba's co-founder and CTO Chatzav Aviv is here to explain how. So what is Neba?
So basically, to put it simply, the idea is that no matter where you go, you would be able to open the app and immediately know what's going on around you, know who's around you, get to know new places from new people, just basically get all the information as if you've been there for like 2 weeks already.
Interesting.
Yeah, so what you basically will be able to do is when you open the app, you'll see where you are, you'll know where you are, you'll see other travelers around you which you can contact and get information from or ask them questions. There is a local billboard, like a bulletin board, which you will be able to find travel partners with or get recommendations or information from people who are actually there.
Interesting. So when you say the information is coming from people who are there, are these other tourists or locals?
So the idea is it will be fellow travelers. So so you get to a new place, you don't really know what's going on, but people have been there. People are already there, so you'll get the information from them. You can ask them
which
questions.
It's a lot better because they already know what is the most interesting to do. And okay, interesting. And does it target specific travelers, as if like if you're a couple or you're traveling alone, or?
The way I see it, it can be good for all types of travelers, but we are trying to target, at least in the immediate audience, as backpackers. People are going, they take whatever they have.
And, exactly. That's good to know that this is more specifically for backpackers. Now, Speaking of backpackers, how did you and your brother come up with this idea? Being Israelis, I'm sure that you've backpacked before, as many do after the army.
So my brother is much older than me. He's like 42. But yeah, when I finished my army service, and like many other Israelis, I wanted to go travel. So I went to the United States and I went to South America, and I've spent almost a year there. And you know, it's just an amazing experience. There's so much to do, so much to see. But with that comes problem, you know. You don't know who to travel with. You might miss things. For instance, when I was in Bogota, I arrived in Bogota, and after I already booked my next flight, when I got there, I realized, oh, there's an infected mushroom show, you know, the day after I leave. Which I would miss because I already booked my flight. Or,
you know, planned that if you had known.
Or when I was in Brazil in the Carnival, a friend of mine who I met a few months back was 5 minutes from me, but I had no idea he's there. You know, so we try to minimize it to give you the information you need when you're there.
Does it pick up, I mean, does it consider, I guess, your interests? Is there some type of input about what kind of things that you like to do as a traveler, or is it just general?
No, definitely. People would have a safe way to find what they want to do, to find what they connect to through people that have the same interests, right? And learn from them.
So and I mean, is it available in the first place? And if not, when will it be available and where?
It's going to be available really soon. We want to launch in the beginning of September. And actually, if you want to get updates on that, you can check our site. It's neba-app.com. And there's if you press on the download button, you'll go to a form. And if you'll fill it, we'll send you an update whenever it's live. Whenever it's live, and you can also follow Neba app on Instagram and on Facebook if you search us and get updates and get great photos and share your ideas. I have so many ideas on places I want to take it and improve it, and I hope it's going to be great.
Great. Well, I think we're all excited to check it out, and thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much, Natasha.
All right. An Israeli dad has created a revolutionary invention, all inspired by the trouble that he faced in conceiving a second child with his wife. It took Michael Vardy and his wife an entire 8 months to finally get pregnant. And despite his degrees in mechanical and biomedical engineering, Vardy simply couldn't figure out how to time intercourse optimally to conceive a baby. That's when he decided he would find a solution. Surprisingly, 90% of women and obviously men just don't know how to time their intercourse when they're trying to get pregnant. And whether you're trying to conceive or not, it's critical to know exactly when ovulation takes place. Today, there are tons of different fertility apps that you can download on your smartphone, which can actually help you predict peak times for baby making, or for some, avoiding it. But the issue is you need the right tools to properly calculate those peak times. One very important factor that needs to be calculated is a woman's sleeping temperature, which interestingly has a strong correlation with her ovulation.
That in mind, I've set up an experienced team to develop the first wearable sensor that will seamlessly integrate key data into fertility apps. And the only objective and quantified data is a woman's basal temperature. All you need to do is wear the sensor before going to sleep. It will monitor your body, accurately calculate your basal temperature, and wirelessly send it to your smartphone or tablet, so that whenever you wake up, it's already in your app.
The wearable tracker is called TempDrop, and it costs about $120. Pre-orders have already been placed online for the past 3 years. And by the way, Vardy and his wife are now the proud parents of 3.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
Well, a new Israeli tracker is promising to help couples track ovulation and plan for pregnancy. So our Hebrew word for today is berayon, which means mazal tov, you're pregnant. So here's a question you'll always hear in Israel. At berayon kvar, are you pregnant yet? Or maybe you'll get matay atem berayon, when are you guys going to get pregnant? Yes, the baby-making business is booming here in the Holy Land. So don't get offended if someone asks you if you're berayon. Don't worry, it's got nothing to do with your figure. Take a 10-minute walk anywhere in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem and you're bound to pass a dozen baby stores. The only business bigger than Arayon might be the little cuties themselves.
The weather is brought to you by international singer-songwriter Sabina. Make sure to check out her latest album, Purple Ribbons, and get updated for upcoming concerts.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be partly cloudy with a low of 79 or 26 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow you can expect a slight rise in temperatures to a high of around 87 or 31 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.58 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.